Hello, thanks for coming back to London Centuries at 7:30 by Big Ben. It was 75 years ago that George Orwell published his great dystopian novel 1984 with a hellish vision of London in a nightmare future. So I thought I'd do an Orwell ride. Now there's all sorts of good places that you can ride to for a George Orwell themed bike ride, because there's down and out in Paris and London. Paris will be a nice one. The road to Wigan Pier, be interesting. Let's not forget Catalonia, homage to Catalonia, because Orwell was manning the barricades in Barcelona during the Spanish Civil War. I'm not going to go quite that far, but I am going to go quite a long way. But I thought I'd make this one specific to 1984. Orwell had 1984 in his head for a long time. It took him a while to write. Had quite a long gestation. But he did the bulk of the writing and he finished it off on a remote Scottish island called Jura. So what I'm going to try and do is ride to Jura and find the house that he was staying in at the time that he was working on the book. And I'm going to take what I hope is going to be quite an interesting route to Jura. The standard way of getting there would be by going up the west coast towards Glasgow. But when I say that Jura is remote, I mean it. Orwell himself called it an extremely ungettable to place. What I'm going to do is ride up to Liverpool, catch a ferry from Liverpool to Belfast in Northern Ireland, ride up the Antrim coast of Northern Ireland, and then get a little passenger boat from the top of Northern Ireland to the neighbouring island of Islay, from where I can get a little tiny ferry to Jura. At least that's the plan. So it sort of breaks down into 3 chunks and they get shorter and easier as they go on. But chunk number 1 is ride from London to Liverpool, and that's what I'm setting off to do right now. It's going to be an overnighter, as you can see. It's just beginning to get dark here. I don't know if you can tell or not. So the plan is out of London, Milton Keynes, Coventry, Stoke-on-Trent, up to Merseyside that way. It's kind of drizzling a little bit as it gets dark. It's pretty yucky actually. Well, London disappeared behind me, and so did Watford and Hemel Hempstead and Leighton Buzzard and then Milton Keynes. Rain didn't stop. And now I'm looking out for a bus stop or somewhere I can stop and have a bite to eat. Oh, this is gonna do. That looks... Pull in here a sec. Oh dear. midnight. Oh. Rain hasn't been heavy, it's just steady drizzle. It's got that feel that it's kind of set in for the night, you know. Well, it's dark and there's nothing to see. Maybe I'll put a map on the screen and do a thingy about the route. So this is London to Liverpool, okay? And ferry from Liverpool, actually it's Birkenhead. Chunk number 2, Belfast to Ballycastle, little place. Chunk number 3 in the islands, that'll be easy. So, just leaving Coventry now, which is roughly speaking the halfway mark. I still have such a long way to go. The rain came back. Basically the night was really long, really cold, totally wet. And the next major waymark is Stoke-on-Trent, but that's still a little way off. Cheshire. It's been in Cheshire forever. Just goes on and on and on. And it's raining again. This ride's been, or this chunk of the ride, it's been really unforgiving. Hello. Thank heavens. It's got to be the bridge over the Mersey, so excuse me. Getting out of Cheshire at last. This is Penny Lane. Must be getting towards Liverpool. We're here. Downtown Liverpool. It's the cavern. Making the most of it here, isn't it? Yeah. I know about the buskers, so I'm going to have to cut him out, aren't I? Next morning now. Just got off the ferry from Belfast and try and find my way into town. See if I can get myself some breakfast. Well, quick recap, it's not a balmy spring day here in Northern Ireland, so I thought I'd get out of town, not waste any time. So setting off on, what is it, chunk 2, the second leg of this George Orwell ride. Yeah, better get back to George Orwell. Felt as though I was getting a bit distracted with the Fab Four yesterday. The County Antrim Coast Road. County Antrim is hilly. The weather's not perfect, but it's pretty nice for cycling. Roads aren't bad, pretty good actually for the most part. Fairly quiet, well surfaced. It's classic coastal stuff. Up, down, up, down, up, down. So this is Ballycastle, Northern Ireland. So I had a quick night stop in Ballycastle and I'm about to get the passenger ferry over to the island of Islay, up in Scotland. And hello to Port Ellen. So I'm just riding across the island from Port Ellen, where the little boat got in from Ballycastle, to another place called Port Ascaig, and from Port Ascaig it's a very, very short crossing over to the island of Jura, which is where the action all happened, where Orwell came up here and was beavering away on his book in 1948. Here we go, just coming into Port Ascaig. So that's my first sight of Jura, if you can make it out through the mist across the water. Well, I've made it onto Jura, but I just got some really bad news. I was at the ferry terminal, from the little tiny crossing over from Islay. Hang on, look. So that's Islay behind me, that you can see over there. And while I was waiting for the ferry over to Jura here, I went into the ticket office just to check for my onward ferry to Oban, further up the coast, which I was supposed to take on Wednesday. Only goes every 3 days. And the woman in the ticket office says, oh no, it's not going to be running until May the 17th. So in other words, my way off the island doesn't exist. So I've got to do some hasty replanning. For now, we're still on the trail of George Orwell. I'm going to try and press ahead with this bit. I'm all full of practicalities, because as you can see, it's very misty. I want to make sure I've got somewhere dry to sleep tonight. So my priorities now are: 1, find a shop; 2, find somewhere to sleep. Worry about Orwell tomorrow. This is the one road of the island of Jura. It only has one road. The goal at the moment is to find a bothy that's quite a long way off the road, like 10k, 12k, to spend the night there. Okay, well, we're off road now, aren't we? I'm making my way extremely gingerly down this track through some fairly nasty forestry land, actually. Interested to see that there are no mountain bike tracks in the mud. Turns out that it wasn't 10k, it's a lot less. Garmin says about 6.9, but after that track through the forestry, what was that? Maybe a kilometre or something like that. So after that was about maybe 5k left. That 5k, it's taken me 2 hours so far. I'm just arriving at the bothy. Oh my god, am I glad to see this place. It's basically a sea kayaker's place. Do not attempt it on a bike, it's an absolutely bloody stupid idea. Coming here on a road bike was a ridiculous idea. You gotta ford across several streams, climb 2 deer fences. It's basically hike a bike with the bike on your back through featureless bog and that tussocky grass where you're up to your knees in it. Well, it's simple, but it's home for a night. A little bit of time's gone by. Most importantly, I've got some hot food inside me. I've got my tiny little micro stove with me, so I managed to get something hot. I think I was so tired and so exhausted when I got here. I didn't appreciate just what an absolutely epic location this is, how extraordinary it is here. Now, I'll show you the view. It's just completely silent. It's me and the deer. Tide's going out. For some reason, I've been finding the path much easier to follow in this direction than yesterday. Yesterday there was no path. Say path, I mean it's right for quad bikes or something like that, I think. This is the wild island of Jura. Sea over there, sea over there. Completely silent here. Well, back on the road again, and heading north on Jura, back on the trail of George Orwell. This is it now. This is my chance to find the house that he was in when he wrote 1984. The wild island of Jura. The road just keeps getting smaller and rougher. It's going to give out entirely in a couple of miles, I think, and I'll probably just walk from there. I've actually been able to ride much further than I thought I would be able to. I thought it'd be down to walking by this point. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Oh, that's it. I didn't realise that it was going to come into view. This is it. I've made it. Whoa. Hang on, hang on, hang on. Don't crash, don't crash, don't crash. Wah. Oh. Oh, this is crazy. Right. It's going to come into view. So go around this corner to the left. Yeah, there it is. See the White House? Hang on, I'm going to stop if I can. This is it. Barn Hill. This is the house that George Orwell wrote 1984 in. Off the beaten track, you might say. Well, I must admit, that felt like a bit of an odyssey from London. Glad I came though. Barn Hill. He must have got so bored. It's nothing to do but work. A George Orwell ride from London to Barn Hill at the north end of Jura, Scotland. I've got to get home now. I wasn't sure whether to read a bit of 1984 or not, but yeah, maybe I'll give it a go. One of the bits I like, God, it's bleak. You've either read the book or you haven't, right? It's so bleak. If you haven't read it, it's the story of Winston Smith, sort of everyman bloke who lives in this nightmare world in the future, where totalitarianism is in complete control. Orwell himself was a socialist, but is widely taken to be a comment on Stalinism and what was going on in the Soviet Union. Winston writes a diary, and doing it, he'll be hanged. He writes in his diary, he went back to the table, dipped his pen, and wrote, "To the future or to the past, to a time when thought is free, when men are different from one another and do not live alone, to a time when truth exists and what is done cannot be undone, from the age of uniformity, from the age of solitude, from the age of Big Brother, from the age of doublethink. Greetings." He was already dead, he reflected. So I'm heading back to Craig House now, the main village here on the island, and I'm going to have to plot my journey home because it's going to be a bit different from what I'd planned. I had planned on taking a boat from Port Ascaig to Oban on the mainland, and that's not going to be running for a good few weeks yet, so I need to look at a map and come up with an alternative, because I have a train ticket from Fort William. It's a long way north of here. Jura. That's the famous Paps of Jura behind me. Looking absolutely magnificent today. Couldn't see them yesterday because of all the low cloud. I'm scoping out possible places to spend the night here on Jura, and this is a nice spot. This has a standing stone and a herd of deer and a lake with ducks, which you can probably hear. Doesn't have any shelter though. How lucky am I going to get with the weather tonight? I've got a sleeping bag. Another view of the Paps. The deer outnumber the people by some enormous number here. I'm off to find somewhere for breakfast. I quite fancy a beach this morning. Let's see what I can find. This is where I'm sleeping tonight. What an evening. The sea is completely flat and calm. Sun's about to go down behind the mountains. I've got the sleeping bag on the ground. Do some stargazing tonight, I think. No midges yet. Too cold for the midges. It's good. Absolutely none at all. The next morning. I'm at the harbour now. I've got here early and I'm waiting for the little boat to take me away from Jura. I'll be rather sad to leave. I rather like Jura. So that was the little passenger ferry from Jura to Tayvallic, heading north towards Oban. That's Tayvallic Harbour. Absolutely beautiful little place. This road from Tayvallic is absolutely magnificent. Bluebells and green water just through the trees. It's just beautiful. Loch Melfort. So making my way up the mainland now. I've been on the mainland since Tayvallic. Heading north on my way to Fort William. I've gone through Oban, stopped there and got a little bit of food. And now riding up the side of what I think is Loch Orr, E-T-I-V-E. And there's quite a good gravel track going up the side. Well, like I was saying, that track was very easy. And all of a sudden I came upon the bothy. Really easy to find, easy access, everything great. Just leaving there the next morning now in a bit low cloud and drizzle. Beautiful bothy by a lovely fast flowing stream, good for washing and getting some cooking water, and I had a dip in the loch as well. So I'm now on the final leg of my ride. Last day today. Got a train ticket from Fort William tonight, so I've just got to get over these hills and find myself the train station. Got today left to enjoy the landscape and being here. Many rivers to cross here. Aha, clearly I've reached the point where the good gravel track stops being a good gravel track. Oh dear. Yeah, this might be slow going. Well, this footpath section is clearly going to go on for a little way yet. I would have thought, just got to get the bike on my shoulder. I would have thought about 10 kilometers of this for anyone who's thinking about taking this route up Loch Etive. One thing in its favour that I can't capture for YouTube is the smell of the air. It's absolutely wonderful. It just feels so clean and lovely here. The views of the loch are magnificent. It will be quite nice when I'm back on the road again. I knew there would be a substantial off-road section today, but I did plan this as a cycling trip, and at the moment It's the kind of cycling where you put your bike on your shoulder wade. I'm just looking for the path, I have no idea. I think maybe it's this stream here. No, hang on, it's the other side of that. I've just got to get over it, haven't I? Oh my word, here we go. Yes, the water's cold. Right, up we go. These aren't the exceptions, this is the rule. It's just endless, it's just one after another. And that's the lock. E-T-I-V-E. There's barely any point in there's barely any point in putting the bike down, because I just have to pick it up again. Bluebells. Many rivers to cross. Well, turns out it was happy days on that path, because the path disappeared. As you can see, and it's just straight up now. There's a stream on my right. I've got to keep that on my right. That last section, that was almost as hard as getting to the bothy and Jura. Oh yeah, I'm on top of a deer fence at the moment. I suppose the next section goes up, I imagine. The way I'm looking at it now, this whole trip was a trip to Jura to see the place where good old George Orwell wrote 1984, and for me to taste a bit of freedom like poor old Winston Smith wanted. Those of you who've read the book will know that it led him, or his attempts to do so led him, to room 101. This is better than, this is hard, Jesus Christ. This is hard, but it's better than room 101. Room 101 is the place that holds your deepest fears. The worst thing you can possibly imagine. Then poor old Winston comes face to face with his. Oh my gosh, I'm back on a real road. I cannot tell you how happy I am about this. I really want to get moving now. Fort William, here I come. That hard off-road section, oh my word, what a killer. It wasn't much more than 10 kilometers, maybe 13. You know, the footpath bit, or the lack of footpath bit, it was really energy sapping. So this is the little road up the top end of the glen, leading roughly north, I think, in roughly the direction of Glencoe. Looks like Scotland, doesn't it? Scottish scenery, Scottish weather. I'll be coming back here, I tell you. Another road, another lock. The one over there, I'm getting there. I'm nearly at my journey's end now, getting really close to Fort William. It's at the Corran ferry, and this is a sea lock. Deep inland, but that's the sea. It's weird, because there's been an absolutely horrible section of road through Glencoe. It's dreadful. Has absolutely nothing to recommend it whatsoever. Windy, barren, loads of traffic, angry motorists, all the usual kind of stuff. So I thought I'd get off the big road and take this smaller one all the way up the west side of the sea lock. Make the most of my last few miles, and then there'll be one more ferry to go on this bicycle ride of many ferries. Little thing to take me over across the lock into Fort William. And that over there, the other side of the water, ladies and gentlemen, is Fort William. Journey's end for this bicycle ride from London to Jura. Well, that's a sudden change, isn't it? Across the water, train station was right there. Jumped on the train. Next morning, here I am in Euston. It's leaving the station. But I got one more thing to do before I can wrap up this George Orwell ride. And that's something that I had intended to do when I left town 1 week ago, but in all my excitement I forgot. And that is to come and find George Orwell's statue, round things off a bit, which is outside the BBC because he used to work for them. So here we go, see if we can find him. Aha, here we go. George Orwell. Sculpture by Martin Jennings, although it doesn't seem to have his name actually on the piece itself. Cigarette in his hand, leaning forwards. That posture looks a bit like Lenin, doesn't it? I'm not sure he would have approved of that. And the inscription on the wall behind reads, "If liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear." Yeah, well said, George. Thanks for watching, everybody. George Orwell Ride to Jura.